Here's a look at where markets ended the week as Wall Street anxiously awaits the Federal Reserve rate decision next week. We got the final inflation data before the meeting, showing a surprise drop in annual wholesale prices, while consumer prices saw their biggest annual jump since January. Investors still believe a quarter-point rate cut is inevitable. Joining me now, former St. Louis Federal Reserve President and one of the candidates being considered to be the next Fed chair, James Bullard. Jim, it's great to have you with us. Thank you so much for being here. Wall Street is expecting at least a quarter-point cut, hoping for maybe half a point cut. Is the data supportive of this? Obviously, we're balancing that with weak jobs data and revisions.
I think the data is supportive of a cut in rates. I think what the committee is going to do is go 25 basis points at this meeting, but they'll also put out a dot plot, the famous dot plot, and that will show their intentions for the next meeting and then the December meeting after that, and even into 2026. So I think the thing to watch here is the extent to which October comes into play. If they seem to suggest that there'll be two more rate cuts, then October will be anticipated by Wall Street for another 25 basis point cut and then another one in December. So you would get 75 basis points by the end of the year. I think that would be good policy and would be appropriate at this time. You'd still be at that level of the policy rate. You'd still be a little bit restrictive, enough to put downward pressure on inflation, but not quite as high of interest rates as we have today.
Okay, Jim, you've been listed as a candidate to be the next Federal Reserve Chairman. There are reports that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has begun meeting with candidates this week, including yourself. Can you confirm that for us?
Yeah, I spoke with the Treasury Secretary and his team on Wednesday. We had a long and fruitful conversation. So I can't really report out what was said there, but it was certainly enjoyable to meet him. He's been in financial markets a long time, and so have I. So it was a good discussion.
Understood. There are critics of the president saying that he shouldn't be speaking out about rate cuts or his opinions or putting pressure on Jerome Powell to cut rates. But he has also said that the Fed chair has been too late in cutting rates. Do you agree with that assessment? Could Powell have started cutting rates sooner?
Cutting rates sooner this year. I think the too late comes from the inflation surge that we had in 21 and 22 and 23. And there, I think the committee was behind the curve, and I argued that at the time, and we really had to scramble to raise the policy rate at that time, get inflation back under control. That was ultimately successful. We didn't have a recession, but boy, we had a lot of inflation. People do not like inflation. So I think that makes sense. I think the committee this year went on pause, maybe a little bit too long. I think the president maybe has a point there, and they were waiting to see whether they would get inflation effects from the new tariff policy. That hasn't really materialized. And so now I think the committee's able to shift back and resume the rate cutting that was started last year.
All right, let's get to this. The Trump administration has asked an appeals court to let him fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook before she's allowed to participate in next week's crucial rate meeting. A U.S. judge had moved to temporarily block President Trump from removing her. Your thoughts on this? It appears that Lisa Cook is going to show up and she plans to participate.
Yeah, I mean, this is up to the lawyers, and I don't really have any insight on this. I do think any member of the committee should get due process for any charges made against them, but the courts will have to decide exactly what that means, and we'll get a clear definition, probably ultimately from the Supreme Court, on the for cause clause of the Federal Reserve Act. So I think the Act says that the Congress's intent was to give some political insulation to people that are on the FOMC, because otherwise, there's political, waves coming and going, and you don't want that to be affecting your interest rate policy too much. So I think it's a wise part of the Federal Reserve Act, but we need clear definition on what all these terms mean.
Yeah. Last question. There's been a lot of conversation about the Fed and its independence. The appeals court, the federal appeals court, said that Lisa Cook is actually essential to that independence. If you were to lead the Fed forward as the chairman, let's just say for argument's sake, how much of a focus would that be for you?
No, I think you want to conduct policy according to the act. The only reason the Fed is even there is because of the Federal Reserve Act. It has certain provisions in it, and it is trying to insulate interest rate decisions from the give and take on Capitol Hill. And I would definitely defend that. I think it's absolutely essential that the Fed be independent of day-to-day politics. But these are political appointees, so that parties get their people in there, and they do get a little bit of influence. But it's a big committee. You've also got the Reserve Bank presidents. It's all a pretty ingenious design, really. It's been pretty successful over a long period of time. So I think we want to keep all that and keep it operating effectively.
James Bullard, thank you so much for being here. Great to see you today.